I'm Eloise, 34 years old, and I'll never forget the moment my entire family burst into laughter at Dad's cruel words. We were gathered for Thanksgiving when he pointed at me and announced, maybe if Eloise didn't take up so much space, we'd all fit better at this table. The room erupted. Even my 8-year-old niece giggled behind her hands. I stood there, gravy boat trembling in my grip, watching 23 family members find my humiliation hilarious. That was the moment I decided to disappear. Before we continue this story, let me know where you're watching from today. If you've ever felt like the black sheep in your family, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding your true worth. Ring the notification bell, because what happens next will show you that sometimes the best family is the one you choose for yourself. Trust me, this journey from Boston to Seattle taught me that taking up space isn't something to apologize for, it's something to celebrate. Growing up as the older sister to Melody was like living in a funhouse mirror where I was always the distorted reflection. While she inherited Mom's delicate features and petite frame, I took after Dad's side of the family with broad shoulders and what Aunt Martha called sturdy German farming stock. The comparison started early, around my 12th birthday when puberty hit me like a freight train while Melody remained fairy-like and graceful. Dad's comments began subtly at first. Maybe just one slice of birthday cake. Eloise became, "Are you sure you need seconds?" which evolved into, boys don't like girls who eat more than them. Mom, Rita, never directly participated, but her silence spoke volumes. She placed smaller portions on my plate while heaping Melody's high, always with that thin smile that said she was doing it for my own good. "Your father just wants you healthy, sweetheart," she'd whisper when she caught me crying after another family dinner where I'd been the punchline of every joke. My brother Connor found sport in joining the ridicule. "Elle takes after Dad's side, built like linebackers," he'd announce at family gatherings, slapping my back hard enough to sting. "Good thing someone in this family can help me move furniture." The backhanded compliments were almost worse than outright insults because they came wrapped in false camaraderie that I was supposed to appreciate. What they never acknowledged were my achievements. While Melody scraped through community college with C's and spent her 20s floating between retail jobs and failed relationships, I graduated summa cum laude with my MBA and climbed the corporate ladder to become vice president of operations at one of Boston's most innovative tech companies. My six-figure salary meant nothing compared to Melody's size 4 dress and her ability to catch every male eye at family functions. The weight gain over the past year hadn't helped matters. After losing my best friend Sarah to pancreatic cancer, food became my only comfort in a world that suddenly felt unbearably cruel. Watching someone who ran marathons and ate organic everything waste away to nothing makes you question every health gospel you've ever heard. I found myself eating to feel alive, to prove I was still here when she wasn't. 40 pounds later, my family's comments had evolved from cutting to downright vicious. This particular Thanksgiving was supposed to be different. I'd volunteered to cook everything, spending 3 full days preparing a feast for 23 people. I made Dad's favorite cornbread stuffing from scratch, hunted down organic cranberries for Mom's special sauce, and even prepared a separate gluten-free spread for cousin Ashley's new dietary requirements. The kitchen became my sanctuary where I could pour love into food even if that love was never returned. The small cruelties started before anyone even arrived. Mom called Wednesday night with special seating arrangements. "Honey, I'm thinking you should eat in the kitchen this year. To help with serving and cleanup. Plus, the dining room is getting a bit crowded." The message was clear: you take up too much space at the main table. I agreed because what else could I do? Fighting back only gave them more ammunition about me being difficult and sensitive. Things escalated when Ashley arrived with her wedding album. As she flipped through pages of perfectly posed photos, I noticed a pattern. In every group shot where I appeared, I was either cropped out or strategically hidden behind someone else. The photographer said it was for aesthetic balance. Ashley explained without a hint of shame. "You understand, right? We wanted everything to look proportional." I understood perfectly. I was the aesthetic problem that needed solving. An hour before dinner, while I was basting the turkey for the final time, I overheard my aunts gossiping in the living room. Their voices carried clearly through the thin walls. Poor Rita. It must be so hard having one daughter who looks like a model and another who looks like she ate a model, Aunt Carol whispered. I don't understand how siblings from the same parents can turn out so differently, Aunt Linda replied. Though I suppose Eloise has always been big-boned. Remember her at Katie's wedding? They had to special order a bridesmaid dress in her size. What they didn't know was that I'd lost my period from stress, that my doctor was concerned about my cortisol levels, that I lay awake every night replaying every cruel comment while anxiety ate away at my insides. They saw my size but never saw my pain. They commented on my body but never asked about my heart. Year after year, I showed up with perfectly prepared food and carefully selected gifts, hoping this would be the time they'd see me as more than a target for their collective insecurity. But as I stood in that kitchen listening to their casual cruelty, I realized I'd been feeding people who were committed to starving me of basic human dignity. Dad's joke history had been getting crueler each year, graduating from gentle teasing to outright humiliation, and I knew tonight would be no different. What I didn't know was that tonight would also be the last time I'd stand still and take it. The dining room fell silent for exactly 3 seconds after Dad's pronouncement, before erupting into laughter. Not nervous chuckles or embarrassed giggles, but full-throated, belly-deep laughter as if he'd delivered the punchline to the world's funniest joke. I stood frozen, still holding the gravy boat I'd been about to set on the table, watching my family members wipe tears from their eyes as they continued to find my humiliation absolutely hilarious. Melody was the first to attempt damage control, though her efforts made everything worse. She placed a manicured hand on my arm, her engagement ring catching the light as she adopted her fake concern voice. Oh, Eloise, you know Dad doesn't mean it that way. He's just trying to be funny. Don't be so sensitive. Her smile never wavered as she gently tried to take the gravy boat from my hands, as if my emotional response was the real problem that needed managing. I mechanically continued serving dinner, moving between the kitchen and dining room like a ghost. Each time I placed a dish on the table, another family member felt compelled to add their own commentary. Uncle Barry, already 3 beers deep, gestured wildly at the table. Maybe we should invest in one of those expandable models for next year. You know, the kind that grows with the family. He winked at me, as if we were sharing an inside joke rather than him suggesting I was literally too large to accommodate. Grandmother Agnes, who hadn't spoken directly to me in 2 years, suddenly found her voice. In my day, girls knew how to stay trim. We understood that maintaining our figures was a responsibility to our families. No one wants to look at unpleasantness during a meal. She said this while reaching for her 3rd helping of mashed potatoes, apparently oblivious to the irony of policing my body while indulging her own appetite. I retreated to the kitchen under the pretense of checking on the pies, but the open floor plan meant I could hear every word from the dining room. The conversation had shifted to discussing me as if I wasn't just in the next room, but had ceased to exist entirely. Remember when she was little? Such a pretty child before she discovered the buffet line, someone said. I blame Rita for not nipping it in the bud early. You have to establish healthy habits young. Another voice chimed in. Poor thing probably can't even find clothes in regular stores anymore, came a 3rd observation, dripping with false sympathy. The final straw came in the form of Cousin Brad and his new girlfriend. Brad, a photography enthusiast who never missed an opportunity to document family gatherings, began organizing everyone for the traditional Thanksgiving photo. All right, everyone, squeeze in tight. Let's get the whole family in frame. He paused, looking through his camera lens, then lowered it with an exaggerated frown. Actually, Eloise, would you mind taking this one? I can't seem to get the angle right with everyone in it. The girlfriend, blissfully unaware of the subtext, innocently suggested, Oh, I can take it so everyone can be in the photo. The uncomfortable silence that followed told her everything she needed to know about the family dynamics she'd stumbled into. Brad cleared his throat. No, Eloise is great at taking photos. She has such a good eye for composition. Before I could respond, Mom appeared at my elbow with a plate of food. Sweetheart, why don't you take your dinner to the kitchen? The table's getting crowded, and someone needs to be ready to serve dessert. You don't mind, do you? You've always been such a help." She pressed the plate into my hands, her fingers cold against mine, her smile never reaching her eyes. That was the moment something inside me didn't break, but crystallized into diamond-hard clarity. I looked at my mother, really looked at her, and saw a woman so invested in maintaining the family hierarchy that she'd sacrifice her own daughter to keep the peace. I set the plate down on the nearest surface, untied my apron with steady hands, and walked to the coat closet. No one noticed as I pulled on my jacket. No one called out as I picked up my purse. No one cared as I opened the front door and stepped out into the cold November night. The drive back to my empty apartment was surreal. My phone stayed silent for exactly 45 minutes before it exploded with notifications. I didn't need to read them to know the progression. Confusion, annoyance, anger, and finally rage that I dared to leave without permission, without notice, without completing my assigned role as family servant and designated target. I sat in my dark living room, still wearing my coat, and opened my laptop. My fingers moved with purpose as I searched. Tech jobs Seattle, product management positions West Coast, how to relocate across country quickly. 3,000 miles suddenly didn't feel far enough, but it was a start. I drafted email after email to companies I'd been following, to recruiters who'd reached out in the past, to anyone who might offer me an escape route from this suffocating existence. As midnight approached, I made a list on my phone. One by one, I went through my social media accounts and blocked every family member. Mom, Dad, Connor, Melody, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, even grandmother Agnes, who didn't know how to use Facebook but had an account Melody managed for her. Each block felt like cutting a chain that had been slowly strangling me for 34 years. By the time I finished, the sun was starting to rise, and I'd submitted 17 job applications. My family had laughed at me for taking up too much space. What they didn't realize was that I was about to take up space somewhere else entirely, somewhere they'd never be invited, somewhere I'd finally be enough. 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, I sat in my Boston apartment surrounded by boxes and bubble wrap when my phone rang with a Seattle area code. The startup on the other end offered me a position as director of product development with a salary increase that made my hands shake. They needed someone to start immediately. Their previous director had left unexpectedly, and my experience with scaling operations was exactly what they needed. I accepted before they finished explaining the benefits package. The family's realization that something was wrong came in waves. First, Melody's casual texts wondering why I hadn't responded to her Black Friday shopping invitation. Then Connor's message asking if I was bringing my famous chocolate pie to Mom's birthday dinner. The tone shifted when Mom discovered I'd blocked her on Facebook. "Eloise, this is childish. Unblock me immediately," her voicemail demanded, as if I were still a teenager who could be ordered around. I hired movers for the furniture worth keeping and donated everything else. My landlord, Mrs. Patterson, watched me carry box after box to the donation truck with knowing eyes. "Finally escaping, are you?" she asked softly. She'd lived below my parents once and understood more than I'd ever explicitly told her. Sometimes the only way to save yourself is to run far and fast, honey. Don't look back. The 2-bedroom apartment I'd called home for 5 years slowly emptied until only essentials remained. I found myself evaluating each possession. Did it belong to who I was or who they wanted me to be? The size, 22 interview suit that I'd worn like armor stayed. The family photos came down. The kitchen gadgets I'd used to cook elaborate meals for people who didn't appreciate them went to Goodwill. The ceramic bowl Melody had given me, painted with "World's Best Sister" in crooked letters when we were children, went in the trash. My boss at the Boston firm made a counteroffer that would have been tempting if I weren't running for my life. "Eloise, you're irreplaceable. Name your price. Better title? More flexibility? We'll make it work." But he'd also been at the company dinner where Dad had shown up drunk and told everyone how his daughter was built like a linebacker, but at least she inherited the family work ethic. I couldn't stay anywhere my family could reach me. Mom's voicemails evolved like a psychological case study. Day 1 through 3 were concerned, but controlled. Days 4 through 7 introduced guilt. How can you do this to me? What will people think when you're not at the Christmas party? By week 2, she'd moved to anger. You ungrateful brat. After everything we've done for you. Dad's contribution was a single text that arrived at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Stop being dramatic. You're embarrassing yourself. I screenshot it before deleting it, evidence for the therapy I promised myself I'd finally pursue. Packing my photos proved the hardest. Every image told 2 stories, the one the camera captured and the truth I'd lived. There I was at high school graduation, smiling while Dad complained my gown made me look like a tent. At Connor's wedding, pushed to the edge of every group shot. At Melody's engagement party, where the photographer was instructed to angle the shots strategically. I kept none of them. My new life wouldn't have room for their revisionist history. The night before my departure, I treated myself to dinner at Francesca's, the tiny Italian restaurant where the owner Maria had watched me grow up. She took one look at my face and knew. You're leaving us, she said, not a question but an understanding. She brought me everything I loved without asking, plates of comfort that I ate without shame or calculation. I watched you come here for 20 years, she said in her thick accent, sitting across from me with her own glass of wine. Always you smile, always you polite, but your eyes, they get sadder every year. You go now, you find where people see you right. You deserve better, Bella. You always deserve better. The drive across country took 5 days. I could have flown, had the company ship my car, but I needed the ritual of physically putting distance between my old life and whatever came next. Each mile marker was a small victory. Crossing into Pennsylvania meant they couldn't easily drop by. Ohio meant no more surprise visits. By the time I hit Iowa, I'd stopped checking my rearview mirror for familiar cars. The Great Plains stretched out like a promise. All that space I was apparently taking up finally having room to exist. I turned off my phone in Wyoming and didn't turn it back on until I reached Seattle. 137 missed calls. 63 voicemails. Over 200 texts. I deleted them all without reading or listening, a mass purge of their escalating hysteria. They'd had 34 years to hear me. I was done listening to them. Seattle greeted me with rain that felt like a baptism. I sat in my car outside my new apartment building, watching the drops race down the windshield, and cried for the first time since Thanksgiving. Not sad tears, but the kind that come with relief, so profound your body doesn't know how else to process it. Somewhere 3,000 miles away, my family was discovering what happened when you push the family workhorse too far. She didn't just leave the farm, she burned the bridge behind her and salted the earth for good measure. The space I took up was no longer their problem. Now I just had to figure out how to fill it with something other than their criticism and my own self-doubt. The Seattle studio apartment was 600 square feet of possibility. Unfurnished except for a mattress on the floor and 3 boxes of essentials, it felt more like home than anywhere I'd lived in Boston. That first morning, I woke to rain pattering against windows that looked out on the Space Needle and realized I could hear my own thoughts for the first time in years without the constant soundtrack of family criticism. Starting at Novatech felt like stepping into an alternate universe where competence mattered more than appearance. My first day, Jasmine from HR gave me the tour, her purple-streaked hair and infectious enthusiasm immediately putting me at ease. You're going to love lunch here, she said, leading me to a cafeteria that looked more like a trendy restaurant. We all eat together, no weird hierarchy stuff. Actually, the CEO makes a mean curry on Fridays. You'll see. When noon came, she appeared at my office door. Come on, new girl. Time to meet everyone. Hope you're hungry because David from engineering always brings too much Korean barbecue. The lunch table conversation ranged from rock climbing routes to the latest Netflix documentary, and not once did anyone comment on what or how much I ate. I found myself actually tasting food again, instead of calculating how much judgment each bite would cost me. When I reached for a second helping of David's bulgogi, he beamed. Yes. Someone who appreciates good food. You have to try my kimchi next time. Family recipe. My neighbor introduced herself by knocking on my door with a plate of dumplings. Mrs. Chun, 73 years old and approximately 5 feet tall in heels, took one look at my empty apartment and said, "You need furniture. Also plants. Plants, very important for the soul. Come, I show you my studio tomorrow. You maybe like art." Her English was accented, but her warmth needed no translation. Her apartment across the hall overflowed with canvases, sculptures, and enough plants to qualify as a greenhouse. "I teach at community center. Pottery on Wednesdays. You come. First class free." The hiking group found me through Jasmine, who mentioned it casually over Thursday lunch. "Some of us go hiking on weekends. Super chill, all levels. You should come." I hesitated, imagining fit Seattle natives racing up mountains while I wheezed behind. "I'm not exactly in hiking shape," I admitted. Marcus from the product team overheard and pulled up a chair. "Neither was I when I started. That's the whole point. We've got people who run ultramarathons and people who consider walking to the coffee shop cardio. Everyone goes at their own pace. It's about being outdoors, not setting records." That first Saturday, I showed up at the Rattlesnake Ledge trailhead in newly purchased hiking boots and enough anxiety to power a small city. The group ranged from college students to retirees, all body types and fitness levels represented. Marcus introduced me around, and when we started up the trail, the group naturally spread out. Some powered ahead, others took their time, and everyone seemed genuinely happy to be there. When I needed to stop to catch my breath, a woman named Amy stayed with me. First time is always hard. I threw up behind a tree my first hike. Now I lead the advanced group sometimes. "You're doing great." Reaching the viewpoint after 2 hours of climbing felt like conquering Everest. The view of the valley below blurred through tears I didn't try to hide. "Gets me every time too," said Tom, a 60-something accountant who'd been hiking these trails for decades. "Something about earning the view makes it better." The group shared trail mix and stories at the top, and when we descended, I felt muscles I'd forgotten existed and a lightness that had nothing to do with physical weight. Dr. Patel came recommended by the company's mental health resources. Her office felt safe, with soft lighting and chairs that accommodated every body comfortably. "Tell me what brings you here," she said simply, and the floodgates opened. Years of stored trauma poured out in that first session. She listened without judgment as I explained the family dynamics, the food issues, the way I'd learned to shrink myself while paradoxically being told I took up too much space. "First, let's separate your worth from your weight," she said. "They're completely unrelated, though your family worked hard to convince you otherwise." Therapy twice a week began untangling decades of programming. We identified patterns. How I ate feelings I couldn't express, how I'd learned to find comfort in food because human comfort came with conditions. "You're not actually afraid of taking up space," Dr. Patel observed during one breakthrough session. "You're afraid of being seen because being seen in your family meant being hurt. But invisibility isn't safety, it's just a different kind of pain." Mrs. Chen's pottery class became my Wednesday evening ritual. My first attempts were disasters, clay collapsing under uncertain hands. "You try to control too much," she observed, guiding my hands on the wheel. "Clay is like life. Must be firm, but gentle. Too much pressure. It breaks. Too little, it never takes shape." Week by week, my bowls became less lopsided. My vases actually held water. The metaphor wasn't lost on me. I was learning to shape my life with the right balance of pressure and gentleness. Jasmine's friend circle adopted me without question. Professional women in their 30s and 40s who met for wine and wisdom every other Thursday. There was Priya the surgeon, Lauren the nonprofit director, Michelle the chef, and Tanya the attorney. They talked about everything from career ambitions to relationship troubles without the competitive undertone I'd known in Boston. When I finally shared my story over my third glass of wine, they listened with the perfect balance of sympathy and rage on my behalf. Planning my first Friendsgiving started as a joke. "I actually love cooking Thanksgiving dinner," I admitted to the group. "I just hated who I was cooking for." Lauren immediately claimed a spot at my table. "Please." "I've been doing Boston Market takeout for 3 years." One acceptance became 5, then 10, then 15. Panic set in when I realized my studio couldn't accommodate everyone. So we'll do it at my place, Jasmine offered. But you're still cooking because Lauren wasn't kidding about the Boston market situation. The solution came from Marcus during a post-hike coffee. Why not build a table? I've got a woodworking setup in my garage. We could make something custom. The project became a group effort. Marcus taught me about different woods and joints while I explained my vision. A table where everyone fit comfortably, where no one was relegated to the kitchen or excluded from photos. We spent weekends in his garage, measuring and cutting and sanding. Other hikers dropped by to help or offer advice. Tom donated beautiful reclaimed cedar. Amy's husband provided professional-grade finishing supplies. The table that emerged was imperfect and beautiful. 12 feet long with natural edges and butterfly joints where the wood had split. It could seat 20 comfortably, with no bad seats, no hierarchy, no one pushed to the margins. We carved a small message on the underside. At this table, you belong. Building it felt like constructing a philosophy I could touch, a physical reminder that I could create spaces where everyone was welcome, starting with myself. 6 months into my Seattle life, I was reviewing code in my sun-filled office when my computer pinged with a LinkedIn notification. My blood chilled as I read. Rita Morrison viewed your profile. Within minutes, my work email filled with messages from my mother. The subject lines escalated from checking in to urgent, family emergency, to how dare you ignore your mother. The family had found me, and the siege was beginning. The emails painted a portrait of a delusional woman. According to Mom, I had abandoned my family in their time of need, left without explanation, and was clearly having some kind of breakdown that required immediate intervention. Everyone is worried sick, she wrote. Your father hasn't been sleeping. Melody cries every day. You need to come home immediately so we can get you help. The rewriting of history was breathtaking. In their version, they were loving family members concerned about my mental health, not the people who'd systematically destroyed my self-worth for 3 decades. Melody's surprise appearance at Novateca's reception desk the following Wednesday sent the entire office into quiet alarm. I was in a meeting when Jasmine burst in. Eloise, there's a woman in the lobby claiming to be your sister. She's making a scene, demanding to see you, saying it's a family emergency. Through the glass walls, I could see Melody in full performance mode, tears streaming as she gestured dramatically to our bewildered receptionist. Security footage later showed she'd been there for an hour before anyone alerted me, first trying charm, then tears, then anger, when neither worked. By the time I reached the lobby, flanked by Jasmine and Marcus, she'd worked herself into hysteria. Eloise. Thank God. I've been so worried. How could you just disappear? I'm pregnant, and I need my sister. She lunged toward me, but security stepped between us. The entire lobby watched as I stood my ground. I didn't disappear, Melody. I moved. There's a difference. And congratulations on the pregnancy, but that doesn't change anything between us. Her mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the calculation underneath. You can't just abandon your family. I flew all the way here. The least you can do is have dinner with me. When I refused, she escalated. You've always been jealous of me. Just because Daddy loves me more doesn't mean you get to punish the whole family. Security eventually escorted her out as she screamed about suing the company for keeping her from her sister. The entire episode was caught on multiple cameras, which would prove useful later. HR called me in the next day, not for discipline, but to ensure I felt safe. We've documented everything, the director assured me. If she returns, we'll have her arrested for trespassing. We've also flagged your information in our systems. No one gets access without your explicit permission. The contrast with my Boston job, where Dad had once charmed his way past security to berate me in my office, was stark. The family's campaign intensified after Melody's failed ambush. Dad called my office directly, somehow acquiring my direct line. His voicemail was a masterpiece of manipulation. Eloise, this is your father. I don't know what fantasy world you're living in out there, but you have responsibilities here. Your mother is beside herself. If you have any decency left, you'll stop this nonsense and come home. We're willing to forgive this little tantrum if you come back now. The idea that I needed their forgiveness for saving myself would have been laughable if it weren't so insidious. When direct contact failed, they pivoted to public humiliation. Connor created a Facebook page titled, "Help Us Find Our Sister Eloise Morrison." The profile picture was from my college graduation, carefully cropped to emphasize my size. The page description painted me as mentally unstable, possibly dangerous to myself, in need of family intervention. They posted the unflattering photos they'd collected over the years, each with captions designed to humiliate. Eloise at Thanksgiving 2019, before her breakdown. Our beloved sister who needs help. Please share so we can bring her home safely. The posts gained traction in their Boston circle, with family friends and distant relatives sharing and commenting with hollow concern. What they didn't expect was for cousin Ashley to screenshot everything and send it to me with a long message. "Eloise, I'm so sorry. I've watched this family destroy you for years and said nothing because I was scared of becoming a target too. They're in financial trouble. Your dad's business is failing, your mom maxed out their credit cards, and Connor's gambling again. They need your money, not you. That's what this is about. They're panicking because their cash cow left the farm." Ashley's revelation reframed everything. The investment properties I'd helped Dad buy when his business struggled. The loans I'd given Connor that were never repaid. The way Mom always mentioned expensive items she couldn't afford right before my birthday. I'd been their financial safety net while they made me feel worthless, a cosmic joke that stopped being funny the moment I understood it. They didn't miss me, they missed my bank account. My lawyer friend Tanya helped draft a cease and desist letter that we sent to every family member. It outlined their harassment, included screenshots of the Facebook page and emails, and made clear that any further contact would result in legal action. Washington State has excellent stalking and harassment laws, Tanya explained. One more documented incident, and we can file for protective orders. The letter worked on everyone except Mom, who made one final attempt through my old Boston colleagues. She convinced my former coworker Janet to reach out. "Your mom is really worried," Janet texted. "She seems genuinely concerned. Maybe you should at least let her know you're okay." I responded with a simple message. "I'm better than okay. I'm free. Please don't contact me on behalf of my family again." Then I blocked Janet too, another bridge burned to keep the fire from spreading. The Facebook page stayed up for 2 months before the reports from my Seattle friends got it removed for harassment. By then, the damage to their reputation was complete. Comments had shifted from sympathy to suspicion as people noticed the cruel captions and began questioning why a loving family would post unflattering photos of someone they claimed to want to help. The Morrison family's carefully maintained image cracked, and I wasn't there to help them repair it. For once, they'd have to clean up their own mess. I had a Friendsgiving to plan, and a life to live that had nothing to do with them. 1 year after the Thanksgiving that ended everything, I stood in my kitchen at 5 a.m., preparing for the Friendsgiving that would begin everything. The differences were profound. Last year, I'd cooked alone in anxious silence, dreading the criticism each dish would invite. This year, Priya was already here making chai, Michelle had dropped off her professional kitchen equipment the night before, and my phone buzzed with excited messages from 19 other people who couldn't wait to gather. My body had changed in ways that had nothing to do with anyone else's opinion. 40 pounds had left through hiking trails and therapy sessions, not through deprivation, but through finally feeling safe enough to exist without armor. Dr. Patel helped me understand that my weight had been protection, a barrier between me and a world that felt dangerous. As I learned to set boundaries with words and actions instead of flesh, my body found its natural balance. But more importantly, I'd stopped viewing my body as a problem to solve and started seeing it as the vehicle that carried me up mountains and through life. The menu planning had been collaborative joy instead of solitary anxiety. Lauren contributed her grandmother's mac and cheese recipe. David volunteered to smoke a turkey Korean style. Mrs. Chun insisted on making dumplings because Thanksgiving needs dumplings, very important. The group chat overflowed with dietary restrictions and preferences, all accommodated without judgment. Gluten-free, vegan, kosher, halal, keto, everything had space at our table because everyone deserved to eat with dignity. Marcus arrived early to help set up the table we'd built together. He'd added extensions since summer, and it now comfortably sat 20 with room for more. As we arranged chairs, his hand found mine. "Ready for this?" he asked. What had started as friendship through sawdust and sweat had evolved into something deeper, unrushed and solid like the table itself. "Beyond ready," I told him, meaning it. This wasn't just dinner. It was a declaration of independence. By 2 p.m., the apartment I'd upgraded from the studio hummed with controlled chaos. Jasmine managed the playlist while her boyfriend taught Tom's wife Turkish folk dances in the living room. Amy's teenagers helped Mrs. Chun fold dumplings while sharing TikToks that made her laugh until she cried. The kitchen looked like a cooking show set, with Michelle directing traffic and me finally understanding what joy in cooking actually felt like. Every person who walked through the door brought something, not because they'd been assigned a dish, but because contributing was how we showed love. The pediatric nurse from hiking group brought homemade bread. Marcus's sister arrived with 3 kinds of pie. Dr. Patel, whom I'd invited on an impulse, appeared with enough samosas to feed an army and a smile that said she was proud of how far I'd come. When we finally gathered around the table, I stood to speak and found no anxiety, only gratitude. A year ago, I was told I took up too much space. So I left and built a new table where everyone fits. Thank you for showing me that taking up space isn't something to apologize for, but something to celebrate. Thank you for being my chosen family. The toast that followed was raucous and tearful, everyone raising glasses to found family and tables that welcomed all. The feast surpassed anything I'd created in Boston. Food made with love and received with appreciation tasted different. We ate and laughed and told stories, the conversation flowing as easily as the wine. No one commented on portions or bodies. No one was banished to the kitchen. When Brad from hiking suggested a group photo, everyone squeezed in tighter to ensure no one was left out. "Post that everywhere," I told him. "Let the world see what a real family looks like." As we lingered over dessert, my phone buzzed with a message from Ashley. I'd unblocked her months ago after her revelations about the family's true motivations. "Thanksgiving disaster here," she wrote. "Your dad spent the entire dinner raging about ungrateful children until your mom started crying. Melody announced her pregnancy was fake, just trying to get your attention. Connor's wife served divorce papers right at the table. Everything's falling apart. They turned on each other without you to target. Hope your day is better." I showed the message to Tanya, who read it with lawyer's eyes. Classic scapegoat family dynamics. Remove the designated victim, and the system collapses. They need someone to blame for their unhappiness. Without you, they have to face themselves. I thought about responding, then deleted the message. Their chaos wasn't my responsibility anymore. I had 19 people here who genuinely liked each other, who'd built something beautiful together, who saw my absence as a loss, not an opportunity for more space. The party stretched until midnight. We played board games and shared stories of other family holidays survived or escaped. Lauren talked about coming out to conservative parents. David shared his immigration journey. Tom revealed he'd been estranged from his son for 5 years before reconciliation. Everyone had scars, but here they were stories of survival, not weapons for future wounds. As people finally began leaving, each goodbye came with long hugs and promises of Christmas plans. Mrs. Chin kissed my cheeks. "You good girl. You make beautiful family." Dr. Patel squeezed my hands. "This is what healing looks like in action." Jasmine refused to take her serving platters. "Keep them. We're doing this again next month, right?" Marcus stayed to help clean up, moving around my kitchen with familiar ease. "That was perfect," he said, washing dishes while I dried. "Though next year we might need a bigger place." The future tense sent warmth through my chest. Next year. More gatherings. Continued chosen family. A life built on joy instead of obligation. I know a guy who's good with building tables, I replied. His laugh filled the kitchen as rain started against the windows, Seattle's blessing on our celebration. 2 years later, I stood in my office as director of product development, looking out at Mount Rainier while preparing for my team meeting. The promotion had come with stock options and the kind of respect I'd never experienced in Boston. But more importantly, it came with the influence to shape company culture. I'd instituted monthly team dinners where everyone was explicitly welcome. No dietary restriction too complicated, no accommodation too much trouble. My team thrived when they felt seen and valued. Imagine that. The house purchase had been both practical and symbolic. 3 bedrooms, a massive dining room, and a backyard perfect for summer gatherings. Marcus had moved in 6 months ago, bringing his woodworking tools and an engagement ring he'd crafted himself from Washington cedar and recycled silver. The proposal happened at Rattlesnake Ledge, where I'd first cried from joy instead of pain. 20 hikers witnessed it, cheering when I said yes to the man who'd helped me build a table where I belonged. Our relationship grew from shared values and mutual respect, not from him seeing past my size, but from him seeing me fully and choosing all of it. He loved my strength, physical and emotional. He appreciated my cooking without fetishizing or policing it. When I had bad body image days, he listened without trying to fix. When his startup struggled, I strategized without taking over. We were partners in the truest sense, each whole individually, but choosing to build something together. The support group had been Tanya's idea, born from wine night conversations about family trauma. So many people need to hear your story, she insisted. To know that leaving is an option, that chosen family is real family. We started meeting monthly at the community center, sharing stories of scapegoating, narcissistic families, and the journey to freedom. I facilitated with skills learned from Dr. Patel and my own lived experience. The group grew from 5 to 50, people of all ages who'd been designated family problems. We shared resources, therapists who understood family trauma, lawyers who handled estrangement cases, strategies for holidays and birthdays. Most importantly, we validated each other's decision to prioritize our well-being over family mythology. DNA isn't destiny became our unofficial motto. You can't choose your relatives, but you can choose your family. The monthly dinners evolved into a Seattle institution. What started as Friendsgiving overflow became regular gatherings for anyone who needed community. We rotated hosts and themes, but the core principle remained. Everyone was welcome. Everyone belonged. The original table traveled to each location, extended with leaves and creativity until it could seat 30. Local newspapers wrote features about our intentional family movement, inspiring similar groups across the city. Mrs. Chen's art exhibition opened on a Thursday evening, the gallery warm with bodies and admiration. Her portrait series included one of me at my pottery wheel, hands covered in clay, face serene with concentration. The placard read, "Woman Building." She'd captured something I was only beginning to see in myself, strength and softness coexisting, creation as an act of resistance. The portrait sold to an anonymous buyer who turned out to be my former boss from Boston with a note. "Your leaving inspired my own escape. Thank you." When Melody made her final attempt at contact, I was ready. The email came through my work address, a long manipulation about Dad's heart problems and Mom's depression. "He might die without making peace with you. Could you live with that guilt?" I crafted my response carefully. His health is not my responsibility. Neither is Mom's happiness. I've made peace with my choices and wish you all the ability to do the same. This is my final communication. Further attempts at contact will be forwarded to my attorney. The boundaries held because I'd built a life worth protecting. The Refugee Resettlement Organization connected me with families needing support, and our dinner group became their soft landing. We helped with job searches, school enrollment, and cultural navigation, but mostly we offered belonging without conditions. The table grew longer, voices more diverse, stories of escape and rebuilding echoing across languages and experiences. Jasmine and I launched a podcast about chosen family and recovering from toxic relationships. The bigger table drew thousands of listeners who'd been told they were too much, not enough, or took up too much space. We interviewed therapists, shared resources, and most importantly, told our stories without shame. The episode about my Thanksgiving exodus became our most downloaded, resonating with everyone who'd ever dreamed of walking away from their own painful family dinner. Marcus and I married the following September in our backyard, surrounded by the family we'd chosen. Mrs. Chen officiated. She'd gotten ordained online for the occasion, mixing Buddhist wisdom with pottery metaphors. My hiking group formed an aisle, Dr. Patel read Mary Oliver, and 19 people who'd shared that first Friendsgiving served as our wedding party. The reception happened around our original table, now weathered with use and carved with names of everyone who'd eaten there. The toast came from Jasmine, who'd become the sister I'd actually chosen. 2 years ago, Eloise was told she took up too much space. So she left and built not just a new table, but a whole new world where everyone fits. Where love multiplies instead of divides. Where chosen family is real family. Where taking up space is celebrated as the radical act it is. The cheer that went up could probably be heard 3,000 miles away in Boston, not that I cared what they heard anymore. As the party continued under string lights and stars, I found myself standing apart for a moment, observing the joy I'd helped create. The tech executive teaching refugees to code. The surgeon dancing with the artist. The lawyer's daughter playing with the chef's son. All these lives interconnected because I decided I deserved better than being a punchline at someone else's table. Marcus found me in my moment of reflection, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "No regrets?" he asked, knowing the answer, but checking anyway. "None," I said, meaning it completely. I built a table 3,000 miles away where everyone fits, where taking up space means you belong, where laughter heals instead of hurts. My birth family might have taught me I was too much, but my chosen family shows me daily that I'm exactly enough. The music swelled as our guests pulled us back to the dance floor, celebrating under the Seattle sky. Somewhere across the country, my original family might still be gathering around their cramped table, finding new targets for old cruelties. But here, in this backyard full of chosen love, around a table built by hands that knew my worth, I was finally, fully home. What would you do if your family made you feel like you were too much? Would you stay and shrink yourself, or would you leave and build something beautiful? If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that they're not too much, they're exactly enough. Subscribe for more stories about choosing yourself, building chosen families, and taking up all the space you need. Hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves a seat at the table, and comment below with your own chosen family stories. Thank you for being part of this journey, and remember, the family you choose is the family that chooses you back. Until next time, this is Eloise, taking up exactly the right amount of space.